In November of 2021, I was traveling from Philly to Las Vegas to compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament. I traveled the country a fair amount, and I would normally stay with whichever teams were also competing as a way to save money. This time, though, for various reasons, I had to stay alone. I booked an Airbnb not far from the Vegas Strip. I did so kind of hastily and didn't realize that the neighborhood wasn't the greatest. I thought of canceling and booking something else, but went against my instinct and rationalized that it was close to everything that I needed, and I wouldn't be spending much of time there anyway. I got to the location and didn't see the host. I would not know who to look for anyway, since the Airbnb profile picture was of a flower. The host gave me the key code to the room I was staying in, a small studio apartment that shared a wall with the host's house. There was only one door in and out of the studio. The first red flag was that the key code for the lock on the door was 12345667. I thought that was weird, but the password for the Wi-Fi was password. So I figured that the host was just an older person who wasn't tech savvy, and the reviews for the room were pretty good. Around 9 p.m. is when the things got creepy. I was close to falling asleep when I heard it. A gentle tapping on the window in front of my bed where I was laying down. There were drapes covering the window, so I couldn't see who was making the noise. I responded by saying, "Huh?" loud enough for whoever it was to hear me. A minute or two went by in silence before I heard the tapping on the window once again. I said, "Hello?" pretty loud, and it went away. I was pretty on edge at this point and immediately wrote a message to the host asking if it was them on the window. About an hour went by before they finally responded saying, "I was going to bring you some water, but it seems like you were asleep, so I left." I was still very much on the edge, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to sleep. I contemplated going for a walk to the store or taking a shower just to clear my mind. But something told me to just sit tight and wait to see what happens. About 45 minutes went by. It's about midnight at this point, and I heard some noise outside. I then heard the distinct sound of someone trying the key code on my door. The attempt failed, but I could hear them trying again. This time I heard the sound of lock disengaging. The door was unlocked. I threw the blankets off of me and ran to the door as it was opening up towards me and slammed it shut in the person's face. I was yelling, "This is my room! Get out of here! Leave!" They responded in a deep voice from the other side of the door. Robert said, "This is my room." Robert was the name of the host. He kept responding with what I said before and called the cops. I spoke loud enough so they knew I was on the phone with the police. Police eventually came and were not surprised at all by the story I told them. They said they would hang around until I called an Uber to leave. The host was very combative and unapologetic. Their alibi for who that person was changed multiple times. When the Uber arrived, I jumped in and felt relieved to be getting out of there. It still creeps me out that I never saw the person who was opening my door. I have a feeling that it was some kind of a setup. If the host knew I was flying in from the East Coast, the 9:30 p.m. tapping on the window, the 9:30 p.m. tapping on the window would have been equivalent to my 12:30 a.m. and the invasion would be about 3 a.m. Maybe it would have been just a robbery, but it could have been much worse. I once booked an Airbnb by myself in an area in Arizona that I had a job interview. Since it was so far from home, I made a short trip out of it. I went with this specific Airbnb because it was much cheaper than any hotels I could find. It was about half an hour away from where I'd be interviewing for, which was fine with me. It was off some dead end secluded road and had a nice view of the desert in the backyard. I brought my laptop with me to get work done at my at the time current job during the day. So that kept me busy most of the days I was there. I stayed there for 3 days. My interview was on the second day that I was there, which was a Tuesday. I would be leaving Friday. So on Monday, the night before my interview, I was practicing the interview questions for this specific company and just generally getting some last minute knowledge on their firm. I was doing this on the laptop in the living room of the little house. Probably around 9 p.m., there was a tap at the window. I say tap because it wasn't exactly a knock. It sounded more like it could have been someone's finger. My head, of course, swung to the left to look at the window in reaction. I didn't see anyone, but it was also pitch dark outside. I was kind of scared to look out the window, but I had to be a man and just do it. And there was no one as far as the eye could see, just darkness. Of course, maybe it could have been a bug hitting the window. We've got some pretty nasty bugs here after all. The next day, I go through my interview and I thought I did pretty well. So, for the rest of my little trip there, I explored different parts of the town in my car, ate at different restaurants, and sat in the backyard and relaxed in the sun. Little did I know I was being watched while I was in the backyard. At night, I was inside watching Breaking Bad on Netflix when it happened again. A single tap at the window. Now it was obvious it wasn't a bug. I was even more disturbed now, but once again rushed to the window. Even though I saw no one, that didn't mean someone wasn't out there. I checked the windows by the front door and opened the door and looked outside for a second. Since there was no one there, I went back inside and then went to the back door. I stepped outside onto the back porch and looked out to the desert behind the house. Silence and darkness. And then I heard a click. It was off in the distance beyond the light from the house. It was somewhere in that cold desert. I felt as if someone could be hiding behind any of those bushes, watching me and toying with me. I yelled out, and almost as if they did it in response, there was another click. I pinpointed the direction it came from and looked that way. I could see someone now, standing not too far away, dressed in dark clothes, blending into the darkness of the desert. I started walking a little closer, then stopped, realizing I didn't want to get any closer to that person. I called out, "You're on a private property. I'm going to call the cops if you don't leave." And I saw the person eerily quickly walk away. I theorized it was the Airbnb owner, but obviously that was a stretch. I didn't really know what to actually think. The following night, I was in my bed on my laptop watching Breaking Bad again before going to bed. I think I watched 2 episodes, so I was doing this for about an hour and a half. I did not hear any noises in the house, though I was definitely giving thought to that encounter from earlier while watching the show. When I finally turned off the light and tried to sleep, within 10 seconds there was a click sound again, muffled from the inside of the closet. I looked at the closet door, which was open just a crack, then a pretty natural response. I sprung off the bed, still in my PJs, ran to the car. I sat in the driveway with the car running as I called 911. I stared at the house as I spoke to the dispatcher, waiting to see if someone would come out of the house because all of my stuff was still in there. A police car arrived, and upon entering the house, we did a quick investigation of the house together. It was very small with not many places to hide. Conclusively, I still packed my stuff and left that place that night for a nearby hotel. I contacted both Airbnb and the host, and I was only able to get a partial refund for my stay. I still think it may have been the host of the Airbnb. I mean, who else would have access to the house? There was no signs of forced entry, which leads me to believe whoever it was may have had a key. But I may be wrong. Maybe it was a stranger who snuck in at an opportune time.